Hello and welcome to the Fen Den. I'm your host, Sean Allen Fenn, and my goal is to win your hearts and to change your minds.
Welcome to the Fen Den. This is a really cool one. I'm going to give you a lot of information, and I also am going to give you an opportunity to take this really cool course that I made for you. How to leverage the 25 cognitive biases for fun and profit. If you don't know, maybe I don't know if this is their first time listening, but I talk about a lot of things on the Fen Den podcast. I talk about art, because that's my thing. And one of the most fascinating things is the way the human mind works. You know, it is everything. Your mindset is everything. The way you perceive the world creates your map of the world, and that is the map that you use to process information. And guess what? If you are trying to communicate something to someone, maybe you are an entrepreneur or maybe you're an artist and you're trying to get your art out into the world, either way, you know, if you have to communicate with someone, if you need to try to get a message across, and if it's not resonating, no matter how you try to, you try to use logic and reason to talk to people and get your message out and to get people to pay attention, you know, because what you're doing is you have great intentions of doing something really good for someone and you want to change the world, maybe, if you're like me. And it kind of gets frustrating when you're not really getting through to people, right? And you're not seeing the clicks on your internet, you know, on your website. You're not seeing the clicks on your website. You're not seeing the cha-ching coming in, right? Well, you know, I'm just like you. I need to solve this problem too. And I really become obsessed with learning and understanding how the mind works and what the dudes who are really like shredding, the guys who are crushing it out there, they know these things, you know, they know these what I'm going to share with you, the way you have to design your web page and the way you have to design your life, it all can be, I mean, it can seem so frustrating and so confusing, and sometimes it is, but when you understand how the mind works, it's easier to sort of zoom out, and you'll find that it's a lot easier to figure out what the problem is when you back up a little bit, and you try and not look at things through your map of the world, right? But you try and look at it through someone else's eyes, and what matters to them. It seems obvious, right? What matters to you? At the end of the day, we want to connect with people, and the best way is to find out what matters to them. But how do you even get them to listen? You know, how can you even get, okay, bravo if you like have some success, but what if you need more success? You know, what if you haven't quite gotten your goals accomplished yet? And when you look at your strategy, and if you're trying to make a difference in the world, think about the way people think. So I'm going to play this for you. I'm going to give you like almost the whole course right here in this podcast. It's not the entire thing, but it's a good chunk just to get to the point of it. It explains how the mind works and why this stuff works. And then at the end, if it's something that you want to hear more about, you can go to my website, SeanAllenFenn.com. As of today, as of May 24th, 2018, you can sign up and get the whole audio. It's an MP3 and it's 2.5 hours. And also, I know that sounds like a lot. So what I'll probably end up doing is breaking it into a smaller chunks and making. We'll see how this goes. But one of the things that I learned is testing stuff out. Okay. And another thing that I'll give you is my 25 subconscious UX design rules. And I'll explain a little bit more about what that is as you hear me explain it. But these are rules that you can use today to easily and ethically, this is very important because this stuff is powerful, ethically penetrate the minds of your customers so you don't lose one more customer. Just only seconds after they hit your website, they bounce off. I don't want that to happen anymore. And I want you to be more successful. And this is a problem that I am solving for myself. And these are ways that are improving my life. And in the work that I do for my clients, it's improving their business. And I want to share that with you. So I'm going to play that now. Here you go. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Charlie Munger talks about agency cost, a cognitive bias that's an example of bad advice on a larger scale. A doctor in Nebraska was on a mission to remove gallbladders. He sent bushel baskets of perfectly good gallbladders to the pathology lab. I mean, he was convinced that was the right thing to do. You're getting your advice in this world from your paid advisor with this huge load of ghastly bias. Learn enough information about your advisor's trade and ask questions. I met a few financial advisors lately, and I ask every one of them, how can I increase my income? Without fail, they reply with advice about not spending, saving, taking out a life insurance plan, living below your means. Not one of them can explain how to increase your income. Use what I'm about to tell you. Use this ethically. Use it for good, not evil. First, we have to have a grasp on how the brain works. Okay, with your brain, you can basically think of it in three sections. You have this reptilian brain that wants to keep you alive. It's your reactive brain. It's the part of your brain that either wants to fight or flight, or wants to know if it's food or if this is something I can procreate with. Okay, some people call it the 4 Fs. Fight, flight, food, and procreation. The midbrain is the mammalian brain. That's where your social understanding is. Your limbic system. That's where your memories are. And then your neocortex is your frontal lobe. That's the cerebral part, your problem-solving part of your brain. That's analytical. It's the last part of the brain to receive information. It's high energy consumption. It's your higher mind. It's your conscious mind. Your cerebral cortex burns up most energy. It's highly protected. This is where your objections happen. This is your filter. Okay? This is like a bouncer at the club. It's not going to let just anyone in. Now I'm going to use the word subconscious and unconscious. It's kind of interchangeable. The subconscious mind is what's underneath. It's sort of you just what's underneath the tip of the iceberg that's really causing all of your behavior. And your conscious mind is just this tiny tip of the iceberg. It's just this 5% of the iceberg that we think is making decisions. But 95% of our actions are subconscious. And logic, what we think is logic, is made up from information that happens after emotion, right? We're emotional creatures, and we respond to emotion. Now, I'm going to get into how you can use this in your marketing endeavors in a minute, but let's talk about the old sales funnel. The old way of doing things. You know how fast technology is changing. I mean, every day there's this new innovation and just the increase of technology, and attention spans are getting smaller. And marketers were using this old sales funnel that at the top is this attention needs to, and then it's going to try to get interest, and then create desire, and then inspire action, and it's a funnel that is okay, but it's stagnant. There's a better way to do this. Because in the past, when you are trying to accomplish something and you're just looking on the surface level of things, you can only get so far. Like, you can only change the color of your opt-in button so many times before it doesn't really matter. There's something deeper that needs to be addressed, right? So here's what we're looking at now. A cognitive bias is the tendency of the human mind to make inaccurate judgments or believe distortions or other fallacies. And what I'm presenting to you is subconscious user experience design, subconscious UX. Okay, let's talk again about our reptilian brain, or the crocodile brain, as Oren Klaff calls it. This part of our brain, this is really where all the information is entering. And when we think we're talking to someone, or maybe you're pitching someone, or maybe your sales funnel is trying to get someone's attention and get them to buy your product or get into whatever you're selling, you might think that you can use logic and you can just kind of use your own words to penetrate the minds of people. And guess what? It's not always working. I mean, the amount of effort it takes before you realize that your endeavors are not working makes me wonder why you haven't thought of this stuff sooner. Maybe you have, but what I'm going to tell you is going to change everything. So if your reptilian brain needs fast, summarized, visual, narrative, high contrast events, it's just binary, it's just good or evil, black or white. This part of your brain is not going to waste energy on something it doesn't understand. It's just going to be ignored. It needs to be novel. Because your neocortex won't accept and it won't process information from your reptile brain if it's not novel. If it's overly familiar, a problem that's already solved, it will be ignored. The brain is a cognitive miser where we're usually on autopilot. It's a lot of processing power, so the brain wants to conserve energy. So how can we, as marketers, communicators, negotiators, salespeople, how can we leverage this? Well, we're going to look at some strategies here. And they involve a few things that I'm just going to brush over here. Limited choice. We want to be able to put a limit on choices. And at the same time, we want to make choices obvious. They need to be they need to be very visual, and they're visually biased because our mind thinks in pictures. Another thing you have to account for is the context and the order of information. That has to be controlled. You have to understand that for as far as prices are pain for people. It causes the same reactions as physical pain. It's interesting, right? So number one, we have to limit choice. And here's where you need to really examine your website, your sales funnel, your everything, your branding. There's a need for hierarchy here. And hierarchy means there is a priority for certain things that need to be followed in a certain way for the reptile brain to even bother with it, right? And it helps to use conventions. When I say conventions are things that people are already used to, that they've come to accept. Like, for example, on the website, we're used to having the menu on the upper left. Why? Because another thing that we've been accustomed to is seeing advertisements on the right of a website. And guess what? People tend to just ignore all of those ads. Okay, so we want to follow these conventions that people are already following, and they're already used to doing. Okay, because remember, if the reptile brain sees something it doesn't understand, it's just going to ignore it. It's not going to waste the energy, and that's part of the reason why people come to your website and bounce right off. Does that make sense? Okay, a really good example of, I'm going to talk about systems and successful systems that is really brilliant, and it has been around for so many years and has proven to work, and that's McDonald's. I don't ever eat at McDonald's, but I have before and I've seen it done, but basically it's so simple. I mean, people know what to expect. That's the beauty of it. So when you go into McDonald's, you know you're going to get a burger, fries, and a Coke. And then they're trained to upsell you. Would you like large fries with that? Make it a large soda for only 30 cents more. I don't know how much it is or anything, but it's a system. And that works for them. Like, no matter how much turnover their employees have, you know what to expect when you walk into a McDonald's, because it's a system. You walk in and you know they're going to ask, do you want this or that? It's very binary. It doesn't take any heavy load in terms of your cognition. I could go on and on about McDonald's. It's a great example, but I'm going to move on. Our mind can only handle 4 items at a time. More than that, the information is ignored. At least if we're in a state of mind that isn't prepared and ready for it. If we're in a non-rehearsed mental state. I mean, if you're trying to get someone's attention and get them into your funnel, you have to design it in a way that has that makes it easy. Okay, you don't want to overwhelm people with too much choice. There are some exceptions to this. Okay, and it takes a little bit of expertise to know how to use techniques like information overload. And this is something that I actually learned from Grant Cardone, this information overload. And this is especially useful for helping someone to make a decision. Now, how it works online is a little bit different because it has to be designed in a certain way for it to work online. But essentially, if a person, is a customer, say they think their objection for not being ready to make a decision to buy your product, their objection is that it's too much. And what do most people do when their customer complains that the price is too high? What's the default thing? It's usually to lower the price, give a discount. But that's the worst thing that you can do. I mean, we've all made this mistake. I've made it. But here's where information overload is really effective. Instead of just pricing yourself out of business and giving discounts, move the customer up. You want to be able to have this value ladder. When it's online, it's designed in a way that is really not too much different from the thought process that you need on the sales floor. But you want to be able to move people up and down your value ladder. And that seems counterintuitive, but when you're interacting with a customer who complains that your price is too high, and by the way, an objection is usually just a complaint. And instead of dropping the price, go up in price. Move them up to the more expensive thing and the more expensive thing, and help them to realize that, you know what, you're actually underestimating how much you are going to be spending because you haven't taken into account like the insurance that you're going to have to buy and the gasoline that you're going to have to buy, or the extra things to go with this lifestyle you're going to spend a lot more money than you even estimated. And so this actually might not be the right product for you. Maybe you need a more expensive product, and more often than not, it's actually true. You had them on the wrong product and they were willing to buy more. Now remember, it's just an objection. If someone says the price is too high, I'm gonna shatter that thing about price. Price is a myth. So anyway, that is kind of a little bit more an advanced thing, but usually if it's your digital marketing, you don't want to overload them with too many choices. Does that make sense? And you want to make the choices obvious. Okay, like you could say, do you want subscription for $10 a month or $119 per year? I mean, let's say you're selling pens on your website. Like, what kind of pen do you like? Just look at these 4 very distinct, qualitatively different 1, 2, 3, 4. There has to be distinction. And this reminds me of, what, have you ever had a graphic designer show you or maybe they're usually amateur graphic designer. They're working on their logo for the company. Okay, they think they're putting a lot of time and energy into their logo. And then they'll show you like 4 choices of their logo that, I don't know, maybe they did it on like, do they still make Microsoft Paint? I don't even know if they still make that, but anyway. Say they show you these 4 choices of their logo, and they're all basically the same thing. There needs to be some distinction. And this is an important rule. You always need to distinguish, or else things are going to be turning. Either you're going to be a commodity, or your thing that you're doing is going to be a commodity. There have been experiments where marketers have tested selling gum, so chewing gum, and they'll put it on the shelf, and they'll place two brands of gum on the shelf, priced the same, and then they'll split test it with 2 other brands of gum, but they're priced differently. Like one will be like, I don't know, 60 cents, and the other one will be 67 cents. And there is a very noticeable difference in how much gum is sold between the distinctive prices. It's a very low percentage when things are priced the same. But when things are distinctive, the sales increase. So you always need to make things obvious. Okay? And there's the visual bias that you have to pay attention to. Because the mind thinks in pictures. Okay? Right now, think of an elephant that is pink and is 1 inch tall and is sitting on your shoulder. Did you think of that in words, or did you think of that in pictures? You think in pictures. Okay, and context matters. Because at first I said, think of an elephant. And what did you think of? A big, normal-sized elephant? And then I said, a pink, small elephant, 1 inch on your shoulders. The context matters. You know, one of the things that I want to do is travel a whole lot more, but and see the Taj Mahal someday. But I've heard that the Taj Mahal is surrounded by poverty and slums and pollution. Okay? And we see pictures of the Taj Mahal and it looks very beautiful, but outside of the borders of those photographs, it's not so beautiful. That's all smog and the image of what you think it is different from reality. So context matters, and I'm going to in a little bit I'm going to talk more deeply about that. Something called pre-framing. Now, as far as design, there are at least 4 things that you need to look at right now on your website. And remember I talked about hierarchy. Well, you also have to pay attention to the negative space, or the white space. That's the space like that isn't filled, but it's purposeful. And your background color. You need to look at what kind of contrast or uniqueness that you have, right? If you have a call to action button, it has to be high contrast. And now, here's something really, really that might blow your mind if you don't know about pre-framing. What is pre-framing? Well, pre-framing is something that happens to us subliminally before we even decide to buy something. And it's an anchoring, and it can be of images. Sometimes it can be music. It can be a number of things, but let's start with images, because the mind thinks in pictures, right? So Robert Cialdini is the author of persuasion. And he says, if you depict an image of Rodin's The Thinker, a person becomes more analytic and deliberative and more likely to solve problems. You know, I don't know if you've ever seen the poster of the little kitten that's kind of hanging from a branch that says hang in there, but if you have that on your wall, that will kind of put you in a certain frame of mind. And I mean, think about the sort of frame of mind you're in by what's around you, by the pictures on your walls. I'm really into art, and I believe that, you know, your art, the art around you changes your perception of everything. And let's say if you need to accomplish a goal, if you need to accomplish a goal, one method along these lines is to put a picture up of a runner winning a race, or whatever significant to you, but it primes your mind to accomplish a goal. I'm going to talk about how you can use this for your marketing and your web design and influencing customer behavior. And if you can start to wrap your head around this, this is going to change everything. There is, the pre-framing is about the meta level of what happens just before the thing. Okay? What happens just before the moment that someone makes a decision? This is really, really, really important. And to be able to control the pre-frame that's when you'll feel like you have superpowers, okay? You'll feel like a mad scientist. So remember, use this stuff for good and not evil, okay? Now, Cialdini talks about it like this: cultivate your ground before you plant the seed. Okay, just like a farmer will till the earth and prepare the soil. So you can think of it as your message or your product, however you want to think of it. That is the seed. That seed can only grow in good soil that has been prepared for that seed to grow. Okay? And this is a really, really powerful thing to wrap your head around. But the moment before you make a decision, something happens that influences you, and chances are you had no idea. Okay, this will help you to put people in the frame of mind that is conducive to your message. Take the core message, whatever it is, what's your core message? And go to the moment just before it. Okay? Now, how do you find out what your core message is? How can you get down to that? Well, you have to ask a series of why questions. Okay, what are you trying to do, but why are you trying to do it? And then your answer, why do you want to do that? And why do you want to do that? At least 5 times. Ask why to get to your true core message. Okay, that's really a big deal too. And I don't know if that's another subject altogether, but take your core message and go to the moment just before it. Okay, so here's an example of this in web design, in web marketing that you can apply right now to your campaigns and your web design and all of this. The example that Cialdini gave is a furniture store website. Okay, you can think of it like this. They did a split test. So this furniture store did a split test of landing page A showed images of clouds. And lo and behold, when the customers came to the website and they're seeing the clouds on the website, the visitors then purchased the comfortable furniture. They looked for the soft things, the pillows, the soft mattresses, whatever that is comfortable. And that's really interesting when you look at the split test, the B landing page. That took a different angle, okay? So think about what the angle is of each funnel that you're putting out there. So on this funnel, they used a different angle, and that angle was budget, the low priced kind of direction, okay? So the angle is a budget. So on this site, there was pictures of coins and money. And what happened was, because there were pictures of coins in the background, the visitors on the website, they purchased inexpensive furniture. So they, without realizing it, were manipulated. And manipulation, I'm not using in a bad or good sense, because guess what? You're always being manipulated by someone or something. And in this case, the customers bought the more inexpensive furniture on the website that depicted coins without having any idea. So the desired outcome was installed in the prospect's mind before they bought. And here's the alarming thing, is the customers had no idea. And, okay, you have no idea sometimes. All of this stuff happens by design. Now, how can you use that in your campaign? The next thing is, we want to look at the context and the order. We want to manipulate the context and the order of information. Now, your sales funnel could have, I talked about the value ladder a moment ago. Your sales funnel might have a lead magnet that is free or a nominal price, just to get people in. And then you should be able to design it in a way that you can move them up the value ladder. So maybe they respond to a free ebook, or they do you do a free plus shipping model for a physical thing. Or maybe they pay a nominal amount, and by doing that you get the right customers used to putting their credit card number for nominal amount, just to ease them into it. Because remember, you can think of your prospects like going out on a date. I mean, could you imagine if you went out, ladies, if you went out on a date with a guy, and right away, as soon as he saw you, he got down on one knee and proposed to you, and wanted to give you a diamond ring? What would you do? You probably call an Uber right then and there before he gets a chance to stand up, right? And how do you think that your prospects feel if you try to pitch them too soon? Without kind of building trust first. With the power of persuasion, there's a technique to it. And it's the reason it works is because it's a whole lot easier to ask people for micro commitments before you can ask for the big commitment. Get a micro commitment. Okay, give something away for free or for nominal price just to get people in your funnel. The reverse is where you can make a big ask, and knowing that your big ask is going to get some pushback, so then you move down to a smaller ask, and people are more likely to buy it because you've anchored them to this higher thing. And this is kind of what we're referring to like moving people up and down the ladder, controlling how you offer and how you build your relationship and nurture your customer. Does that make sense? So you want to manipulate the context and the order of your interactions, and think about, okay, speaking about price again. Let's start with this. In politics, think about the last election, and I heard that Bernie was thinking about running again. But when in the history of the United States, when has the third party candidate ever won an election? Why doesn't the third party candidate ever win in the United States? Well, guess what? I'm no conspiracy theorist, but this is a trick of the mind. It's called the decoy effect. It's when, if you ever go to, let's say you go to a wine shop and you see 2 bottles of wine, right? And one sells for $10. Maybe you're not a wine connoisseur, so you're buying based off price. The one is $10 and the other for $30. So what's more expensive? $30 one, right? Now, the next time you go in there are 3 bottles of wine on display. One for $10 and then the other for $30. But now you see a third bottle of wine next to those, and it's priced at $50. Now, so you have one for 10, one for 30, one for 50. Now, which one seems more reasonably priced? When you buy a fountain drink, I don't usually buy fountain drinks, but I have before, and maybe you do. When you buy a fountain drink, which one do you usually buy? The small, medium, or large? It's usually the medium, isn't it? How about at the movie theater? Do you get the small popcorn, the medium, or if you're like me, you get the big-ass popcorn, the jumbo size? Now, the decoy effect, this one takes some strategy, and it depends on what you're selling. But when you notice websites that offer prices of 3s, it's for this reason. One of them is a decoy. Okay, it might be 3 to 5, but keep it simple. Let's do 3. One of them is a decoy, either to get you to buy the middle product or to get you to buy. It's intentional, which sometimes it's the more expensive thing, but you can be sure that it is strategy. Okay, so how can you apply that? It's called asymmetric dominance. The decoy effect is when the pricing page on your website, this is a mind game. You want to exercise the most powerful mind-shaping strategies that you can muster. The decoy effect is when this pricing strategy that can completely change the way that you do online business. If you get this wrong, you can destroy your business. But if you get it right, you can make a lot more money. Because when we're faced with a third choice, a strategically priced decoy, customers will be more likely to choose the more expensive of the other two options. Unless you're purposefully getting them to the middle option. Depends how you do it. But here's how it works. When you have two options, users are forced to make a decision. They can choose the small option for less money or the big option for more money. It's a tough decision. They want more awesome, but don't want to spend more money. So what do? They generally spend less money. But now enter the decoy effect. Decoy effect pricing involves adding a third option. That's the decoy. It's priced close to the more expensive option, suggesting that the more expensive option is actually better. It's kind of like a middle option, but it's so skewed that it makes it seem stupid not to go for the higher priced option. Okay, so you have three price options here. One of them is $197 a month for 200 units. The next one is $97 a month for 50 units. And the third one is $27 a month. But that's for 10 units. So which one are you more likely to buy? The $197 a month, the $97 a month, or the $27 a month? Even though the $27 a month, you're getting less for your money because it's only 10 units. Okay, there's a professor of psychology and behavioral economics at Duke University named Dan Ariely, and I don't know if he designed this or he pointed it out, but The Economist is a perfect example where The Economist totally did this. I don't know if they still do it the same way now, but they had an offer for $59 just for their online product. Okay, and then they had a $125 price for print, so you can just get the print for $125, and the third one is $125 for online and the print together. What do you think most people bought? Right, the $59 for just online service they got 16%, and no one bought the middle option because that was the decoy. But the more sales went to the more expensive option for $125 to get the online and print together. 84% of sales were driven by that one. Okay, but what happens when you switch it, or when you take out the decoy? Then what happens is you have the $59 online option, and then you have the $125 option for online and print. Okay, but you don't have the decoy now. Okay, so now what happens? What they discovered is a 30% lost revenue because you took away that decoy. So 68% of their sales were from the $59 online product, and 32% were from the $125 online print. So the decoy effect when done right, can either make or break you, right? So the key is to minimize choice and focus on the middle to raise the perceived value. Okay? So let's review a little bit. Here's what you need to know. Priming. Priming is everything. Okay? That is where the moment before you get your prospect to buy, the moment before the person hits your website, control that moment just before on a meta level, and you have superpowers, right? Okay, you're framing. I wonder if you've heard the term framing. You probably have, but framing is the way you present information and the context that you put the information in. Context is so important. The next thing is we anchor on the first thing we see. Okay? Think about the first piece of information that you receive, you get fixated on. And sure, this happens like in a pricing sort of thing, but it also happens in life, in what we kind of, how we're brought up, and our sense of the way we perceive the world will shape our entire reality based off of the first piece of information that we have. I mean, there have been scientific breakthroughs that were ignored before they were acknowledged because of this, because people value the first piece of information. Okay, so we anchor on the first thing we see. All right. You want to be able to be strategic about your pricing options. Remember, it can make or break you so this is a tricky one. But you can add a new high-end option, and it may or may not sell well. So you have to test a lot of stuff out. Another rule of thumb is show your prices in a decreasing price order, like from high to low, unless you have a funnel to where, like I mentioned, you have like a low priced, nominally priced thing that gets people in, and then you move them up the ladder. So you need to, according to your business, depending on your business, move people up and down the ladder. What I'm about to reveal is 25 rules based off of the 25 cognitive biases that were parsed by Charlie Munger. Use this stuff. This is really powerful. Before I conclude this episode of The Fen Den, I want to invite you to go ahead and click like, subscribe, and share this with somebody. I'm also inviting you to go ahead and visit my website, SeanAllenFenn.com. And again, as of today, May 24th, 2018, if you go to sign up to get the entire session that is totally yours for free from my course, How to Leverage the 25 Cognitive Biases for Fun and Profit, you'll also get a download of what those 25 rules are. That all you have to do is start using them, but this is important. It's really powerful stuff. There's my list of 25 subconscious UX design rules you can use today to easily and ethically penetrate the minds of your customers so you don't lose another 1 second after they hit your website. Go ahead and check it out now. Go to my website and sign up for that. And it was a pleasure doing this podcast for you today. I thank you so much. I'm so glad I can make time for this. And thank you for being awesome.